Thank you, Praveen, for asking me to present this topic. And I wouldn't blame myself, but it was the banquet that made me come late. So, good morning, everyone. This is post banquet session. So, forgive me if I miss something. So, how to screen my patients for refractive surgery with a basic setup. So, this is a photograph that was been taken. That was the way they used to screen the ophthalmological patients in the 1800s. So, Praveen has given me this basic topic, but not at that era, but today's era. So, to start with, my practice is based in Akluz, which is 160 kilometers from Pune, and it's a tier 3 town. So, before I got into the LASIK, before I bought my LASIK machines, I wanted to know what all things I need to check before I send the patient for a refractive surgery, or what all things I need to do it myself before I buy a LASIK machine. Or so so more than 50% of our patients in the outpatient department, they come for refractive corrections, as we all know. And the modalities to perform the refractive correction is by streak retinoscopy, autorefractometer. And out of these 50% of the refractive correction patients, they like 10% of the patients, they will ask you whether you have a refractive setup or can I undergo a refractive corrective procedure. But then that time we have to have an answer, so we have to do few things before you say yes or no to the patient. So, and the good number of patients, they do ask for refractive corrective procedures. So we need to take a few things into consideration. We need to screen the patients for refractive surgery by taking we should have a proper sense of history taking. Do a proper autorefractive keratometer or a streak retinoscopy, a slit lamp, and try to understand the patient's expectations before you proceed before you say anything to the patient. History taking. My medicine teacher, when I was doing my MBBS, my medicine teacher used to say, this is the basic thing that you should learn before you become a good doctor. So history taking, you should always see to it that if the patient is above 18 and below 48 years of age, if you want to send him for a refractive correction, you need to ask what is the frequency of the change in the refractive error. If there is a frequent change in the refractive error, yes, there is a sign, there is an alarming sign that you should not be sending or you shouldn't be saying yes for the refractive procedure. Then comes the family history, whether the patient had his siblings or his parents, they had any history of keratoconus or any corneal condition, corneal ectasia or anything like that. You should always screen for systemic illnesses like diabetes mellitus and thyroid orbitopathy. These are completely no for a refractive procedure. I wouldn't perform a refractive procedure in a patient with a type 1 diabetes, because later on he might develop any kind of problems, or there might be a problem with the healing of the post LASIK period. And also look for if the patient had a history of dryness of eyes, because performing a LASIK on these patients might increase the chances of their symptoms, and the condition might get worsened. And also, if he or she has got a history of severe allergic conjunctivitis like limbal VKCs, you need to take it slowly. Maybe you should correct these things, and then maybe you can send the patient for refractive corrections. So coming to the ocular examination, this is a very frank case, and this is, as we all know, this is a monsoon sign. This is you should always start with a torchlight examination, and to rule out any signs of keratoconus. You shouldn't be missing these cases. Then comes the streak retinoscopy, wherein you should see whether the patient has any Caesar's reflex. You should also see whether the patient has refractive error of difference in both the eyes, so that you don't miss any form first keratoconus. Because if there is a difference of say more than 1 or 1.5 diopters of cylinder in both the eyes, then you should further evaluate the patient instead of sending the patient directly for the refractive procedures. Keratometric readings, if the patient has got more than 47 degrees of diopters then it's an alarming sign. If there is a difference of in the two meridians of more than 2 diopters in the keratometric reading, yes, you shouldn't be sending the patient for refractive procedures. while doing a slit lamp examination, you should do a slit lamp examination to rule out meibomian gland dysfunction, blepharitis, any signs of dry eye, scars like nebular opacity, because the patient might expect that while performing the refractive procedure, you can remove the scar as well. So you should always, or if it might further lead to thinning of the cornea, and also rule out corneal thinning. You should also check for the shallowing of the or irregularity of the anterior chamber. You shouldn't miss a patient with a subtle or a phacodonosis, because once we had posted a patient for refractive procedures, and later on, I don't know, with my sixth sense or something, I just asked the patient, maybe I should be seeing the patient once again, and I saw a mild phacodonosis. So we just aborted the procedure, because once you put the suction ring, that might lead to subluxation of the lens, and it is always better to evaluate these patients on the slit lamp before you say yes or no. And also for the shallowing of the angle, because this might further lead to glaucoma in the post-LASIK period. Look for the keratoconus, cataractus changes in the patient. I had a patient who was around 36 years of age, and he came for refractive procedure in one eye. So when we did refractive correction, there was -5 in that eye. So, but when we evaluated on the slit lamp, we saw that he had a nuclear cataract. So it is not that each and every patient with a refractive error needs to undergo a LASIK procedure, but yes, you have to see whether he has got any cataractus changes in the eye. You shouldn't miss, this was one of my patients wherein the patient had the central cornea was absolutely fine, but he had peripheral thinning, and this is we tend to overlook the inferior portion of the cornea, and this is a pellucid marginal degeneration, and this is the recent case that I came across, and I was about to post the patient for LASIK, but then when I did a proper slit lamp examination, I could realize there was inferior peripheral thinning. So contraindications, once you if there is an abnormal wound healing, if the patient is known to have keloids, the post-operative period, the LASIK patients would have, or PRK patient will have a haze. So it is completely no-no, or at least you should be well prepared for these patients. Active corneal ulcerations, obviously nobody will go for this. Herpes history may reactivate in the post-LASIK periods. Recurrent corneal erosions, if this might lead to poor healing of in the post-LASIK period. Pregnancy and lactation females, there's a risk of myopic progression, haze in a PRK patients, and change in tear layer, and avoidance of the fetal exposure to the medications that you give it in the post-LASIK period. And dry eyes like sick syndrome, yes, of course, dry eye, it might aggravate the symptoms. SLE and fibromyalgia these are the relative contraindications, and I have never evaluated these for the in a pre-LASIK patients, but I just came across in some literature, and that is the reason I've put it. So to summarize, a proper history taking can guide you whether the patient is a yes or a no for the patient. Torchlight examination, streak examination, and slit lamp examination can give you a clue about the underlying diseases. Try to understand the patient's expectations, and not all the myopes can undergo refractive procedures, we should always know. Be sensible while dealing with these patients who want to undergo refractive procedures, because these are young patients, they have more expectations from you, and if you say yes to the patient in the beginning and no later on, this might lead to further, patient won't be that happy with you. So thank you.
Very nice to summed up. So Nikhil, my question will be, so when you purchased your Exima machine, before did you have some register where you have kept all this?
Yes, we had registered almost around 50 cases.
Okay, so before buying the machine. So that's a good thing to have. So whenever you're planning to buy a Exima machine, you can have a logbook, or you can have some books, some registers where you can keep your cases ready. When you buy the machine, then immediately you can call those cases for a screening with the procedure which we have, and then go for Exima.
So that would reduce your waiting time for the LASIK. Usually what people do, they do is they buy LASIK machine and then they start screening for the refractive procedure. Instead, you should be doing it other way around.
Otherwise, and that's why this topic is very important for the current scenario. So any questions from the house, please? Any doubts you have? And it's open to the speakers also if they want to ask any doubts. It's not necessarily the delegates. Any speakers or any person, anything in their mind? It's